that G-Drive Racing. It's John Martin, so Mike Conway's car, and its safety car is out because James Rossiter can't get that going.
Yeah, but stuck at turn 1, so that's a false dawn for here. It's territory incognito here in Texas for everyone here, of course. The only man who's got any experience of the circuit is Ollie Gavin, who's racing here this afternoon. He was in the ALMS race last year, but didn't go long. Let's see what happened to the Lotus. Well, I think he just lost something, didn't he? He wasn't pushed, wasn't touched, lost drive or lost the engine, something or the other.
Yeah, he's just gone straight on, hasn't he? But not under braking. It's just a case of he just peeled off the racing line, almost realised that there was no power there and got off the brake pedal and just went straight. So intelligent driving, it has to be said,
just getting out of trouble,
James Rossiter, because a car stationary or going very slowly on the apex at turn 1 can be a bit of a disaster in the early stages of a start, and so Rossiter doing the best thing.
So Wout Duval leading the field from Fassler, from Buemi, and then Nick Heidfeld in the Rebellion, John Martin for G-Drive, Alex Brundle for Oak Racing, Bertrand Baguette for Oak Racing, and Pierre Capper for Pecom Racing. That's our top 8 at the moment. And those Oak Racing cars, they've had a lot of problems since they've left Le Mans, because they've left those 2 Oak Racing chassis in Le Mans configuration. They're just really not suited to this circuit at all. They've got such low downforce, they can't get the grip they need. That's why they didn't shine in qualifying.
No, it is difficult, and although the chassis is fairly strong, like you said, the downforce configuration is the key element to that package, and all of the LMP2 cars are very closely matched, so it only takes a small deficiency to really set you on a downward spiral, so to speak.
Right, so James Rossiter being in contact with the pits on the radio at the moment, 30-year-old from Oxford, son, of course, of Jeremy Rossiter, who was a leading Formula 4 2000 driver back in the 80s. Knew Jeremy very well in those days. Very proud of the work that James has been doing, but at the moment it looks like he's not going anywhere, so this is really tough time. Everyone's keyed up for the start, Tom. You're a former race driver, you know what it's like. You're really keyed up, and then suddenly end of the first lap, oh, we're back in cruise mode.
Yeah, you're keyed up. It's slightly different to other sports where you don't get G'd up, and he's looking at that front left. Now, did he have contact with somebody on the lead up to turn 1? Is there a suspension issue on that car? We didn't see any smoke or anything in terms of that left front dropping down or the one of the rears popping up. So there's definitely something on that front left. But going back to what I was saying, you don't get pumped up. You want to be relaxed. You want to be able to deal with the adrenaline and be cool and calculated into turn 1. And that's what these drivers are.
Antonio, let's see his teammate.
Have you spoken to James, or have you heard from him?
Yeah, it seems that there was a contact in the first corner. We don't know with which car he had this contact, and the front left seems broke, but now they're trying to bring back the car to the pit, and if we can repair, start again the race.
Thank you.
Yeah, from what he was doing, he got back in the car and he was just wiggling the steering wheel, wasn't he? So maybe
steering arm
broken, as Antonio obviously can't know everything from here. But here's a replay of it. We don't see the contact. All we see is him coming out. But which car was that he might have tangled
Pierre
with?
Capper, that was the Pecom car, wasn't it?
Pecom, exactly right. Yeah, that's the Argentine run car. Luis Perez Compagnac, the ice cream king. And we're going to take a break, and we'll be back here. Hopefully the safety car will be ready to leave the track, and we'll be racing again here on Eurosport in just a couple of minutes. They have checked, there is no damage on the Pecom car, but the only change we saw on that first lap is Tony Villander moving up to second place in Pro in the 71 car. So here we go, we're racing again. Safety car pulls off as they come into turn 20 rather. That's the final turn, and we're racing. And just look at the speed these 2 Audis are carrying. Now, can the Toyota, which can use its hybrid power from zero, do anything about it? No, look, the Audis are battling out between themselves. They're ignoring the Toyota completely.
And that's about as close as it gets between two teammates, and it's given the Toyota an advantage. That is the pace of the Toyota. He's just used his hybrid system. It was clear to see there that as soon as he picked up the throttle, he was that much quicker than Fazler out of turn 1. And that has given us a real race, because now the Audi will need to get back past that #1 Audi of Marcel Fazler. Loic Duval leads, our poleman. First pole for that #2 car. What can the Toyota do coming out of turn 11? This is on to the long straightaway that we have, and you just see the advantage. The Toyota driving away from Fazler into the slipstream of Loic Duval.
Yeah, Sebastian Buemi then now starting to have a sniff. Now, you mentioned about the hybrid power. The Audis cannot use their hybrid power, which is four-wheel drive, of course. It's the front wheels that get the extra hybrid power from their Williams flywheel. It's the kinetic energy stored up. 120 kilometers an hour they have to be doing before they can use that. The Toyota, though, as you said, can use it from zero, and their power comes from capacitator batteries and goes through the rear wheels. Both cars get about 750, 800 horsepower just while that extra hybrid power is feeding in. Look at this battle for GT then. Incredible. GTE Pro and Am all mixed up there, and here's the factory Porsches, both of them running together with the Ferraris chopping and changing as they go around these opening laps, and two Aston Martins there behind them. Stuart Hall, our colleague from Eurosport, he's in one of those Astons as well. He's showing that number 96 car with Jamie Campbell-Water. Ahead of him, Nicky Tim starting in the young driver, Danish Aston Martin. That's the team Alan Simonson was racing with. They decided to continue this year, and a lot of the cars here this weekend are carrying in memory of Alan badges, as they did at Sao Paulo.
Very good and fitting tribute, as we see Gianna Maria Bruni in a sandwich between the Porsche and the Aston. Three Astons nose abreast across the line here.
Yeah, so that is Tony Villander, who's a sandwich at the moment between Fred Makovicki and Paul Dalanana. And then right behind them, there's the Porsches. There's Bergmeister, Leitz, the two Porsches running together. Jimmy Bruni, in a very unusual to see him down in 6th place in that fifth place rather, in the Air Course Ferrari. Then Darren Turner right behind him, and Darren sharing that Aston Martin, the number 97 car, with Ollie Gavin, as we heard. He has gone on board with his close friend Stefan Mucker and Darren Turner for this one-off race here in America. He was here anyway in the LMS racing the Corvette. They said, we'll lend you for the weekend. Thank you very much.
Back on board with Marcel Fazler, but going back to how you described the curves in the hybrid system, beautifully put and absolutely spot on. It's worth pointing out that Audi actually didn't know that they would have a 120 km/h limit when they designed the system. So they were very, very clever and put the design onto the front wheels. As you see, look, watch. Now you can see the Toyota using its hybrid system to beautiful effect, just being able to drive straight past the Audi of Fazler, and it's a boost effect ultimately. It's almost like a push to pass, and they'll use it only out of the slower corners and only when they can really utilize the full effect of it. And in this situation, it was for track position, and that's why you saw the Toyota of Buemi using it in this element of the circuit. I'd ordinarily expect them to use it out of turn 11, but he spied a great opportunity, and they're all incredibly intelligent and experienced drivers at the front, aren't they?
And don't forget, it's not just the hybrid power on the Audi. They don't have four-wheel drive until they get to 125, because the front wheels are just passengers until they reach that moment. Incidentally, Toyota has already announced its plans for next year. They are going to fit front-wheel drive to the car, but each of the front wheels will have an independent electric motor driving it, so it won't be an axle like the Audi has, and so that capacitator will feed the front and the rear wheels, so it will be four-wheel drive like the Audi at certain times around the circuit.
And that's probably to balance off the tyre degradation, because like any performance gain in motorsport, it tends to come with a compromise. You know, we can put loads of downforce on the car and get loads of grip, but we're going to carry loads of drag and be slow in a straight line. So when you're chasing performance gains in motorsport, you always have to look at the flip side, and the Toyota does use its rear tyres more than the Audi, and that will have an effect. There is a huge strain on the tyre here because of the temperature that's built into the carcass. This is really the hottest in terms of conditions that WEC has raced in, certainly in 2013.
Yeah, we've got 38 degrees apparently ambient at the moment. The track must be something like 45 degrees because it's a great battle here. Still this huge gaggle of cars fighting it out. And there we are. There is the whole field. There's Makovicky from Villander, Bergmeister, Leitz, Bruni, Darren Turner, Paul Dall'Anna and Nicky Tim all in the picture there. And this is repeated what happened last night in the ALMS race. We had Corvette, BMW and, would you believe, Viper fighting it out from start to finish. They finished in the order, Corvette, Viper and BMW, but it was really something to see that.
And I was speaking to Richie Stanaway, who is in the 98 Aston Martin, who was actually the quickest driver in GTE Pro and Am in the qualifying session, but as that's balanced out with his teammate, they didn't quite get pole position. But he was saying, I absolutely love WEC. He is running in the Porsche Super Cup, which is a sprint race category for one make Porsche's GT3 cars on the Grand Prix weekend, and he said, listen, the WEC is like a 6-hour Porsche Super Cup race. It's that closely fought. And he said, you know, you're really in the mix from the off, and it's essentially a sprint race. And Fazler getting very close to the back of Buemi there.
Yeah, I think Fazler's tyres are now, his front tyres are getting some heat in them, aren't they? He's got much more grip now. I've just noticed last couple of corners. He perhaps hasn't been able to quite get the car to where he's pointing it, but that's coming back to him now in this heat. And look at this, really, really close. Buemi's tail hanging out there. So much power through those rear wheels. Maybe 800 horsepower, as we said, and in this heat here, that can be an embarrassment at times. There we are, there's Raymond Narak, that's his car. Who's on board that car at the moment? That's the Le Mans winning IMSA performance car, the 76 car, and actually on board that at the moment is Jean-Carl Vernet. So he is leading in the AM category at the moment. There's the rest of the field behind them. So we got Vernet, we've got Roberti in the Proton Porsche, we've got Matt Griffin, the Irishman, in the Air Force Ferrari, we've got Jamie Campbell-Walker in the Aston Martin, and then the Labrat Corvette at the back of the...
And it's interesting because Jean-Carl Vernet is a driver that has real pedigree in the States, having competed in their single-seater ladder, is an international Porsche scholarship winner, competing also in the Porsche Super Cup this year and doing a great job in that IMSA performance car. Really talented young guy, another youngster from single-seaters.
He's a man many said should have been in Formula 1 by now, but he just seems to have missed the boat, all the opportunities, hasn't he, over the period? It'd come back to him, perhaps. He was Red Bull at one time, wasn't he?
Yeah, the Czech sailed past him, so to speak, because it's a very difficult environment to get into. It's Formula 1. And it's great to see young drivers with huge amounts of talent being picked up by manufacturers and being able to showcase their talent in international formulas like this. This is a problem for Fazler because he cannot get past Buemi. Now, his teammate Loic Duval is checking out. He's 6 seconds down the road. Audi will more than likely single stint their tyres here because they tend to lose in terms of time, delta time on the second stint compared to the Toyota. For whatever reason, they're not as quick, and the Toyota will go longer on this first stint for fuel and then will double stint its tyres, so gain time in the pits. I might be wrong, but that's what they'll try and do, and so that is why Fazler's desperately trying to get past Buemi, because A, he doesn't want to be racing this Toyota, he wants to be racing this man, and B, he's looking at the bigger picture in terms of where the Toyota will gain time.
Yeah, Loic Duval then, of course, he and McNish and Tom Christensen, who we hardly mentioned because, of course, Tom didn't do the qualifying. Just 2 of the 3 drivers did that, best of their 4 laps. Rock actually got married last week, his long-term girlfriend Gail. They got married back in France, so congratulations to Rock, and congratulations also to Martin Pass's wife, Teresa Pass, who is one of the Audi motorsport team. It was her birthday yesterday, so lots of celebrations going on there. So McNish and Duval and Christensen, this is the second pole they've had this year after Silverstone. They won at Silverstone, they won at Le Mans, had a 23-point lead in the championship, and of course that is what they're trying to maintain today. They've got 3 more races to go after this, so the season is by no means over. That's the 98
Dalilana.
car just spun out. That's Dalilana, who was right in the thick of that pro battle. That's going to cost them dear, isn't it?
Cost him time and also cost him performance, because he's going to have flat spotted those tyres now, and he's just done that all by himself. Missed the apex, carried too much speed, and therefore the car rotates. And yeah, not what you want to be doing if you're going to certainly double stint your tyres. And look, Buemi now into the back of the GTE runners.
Oh, so soon. I mean, we're only, what, 9 laps completed at the moment. As you say, they've caught them up already. That is the speed differential. And even here, I mean, Le Mans, it's a huge problem. But even on a shorter circuit like this, it's a problem. You're just constantly watching your mirrors. Although, as we always say, the onus is on the car who's passing.
Well, I was speaking to Ollie Jarvis the other day, and he says that if you ever get a chance to go in to the Audi, and interestingly enough, David Brabham was talking about this. If he sat in the Audi, I think it was at Goodwood, and he just couldn't believe how little you can see in this year's car, because you can barely see over the front tyres. And certainly Ollie Jarvis said when he first started driving it, he was missing apexes everywhere because he couldn't work out where he was positioning the car.
Yeah.
And that plays a big part, because it's so difficult to see where you are and where the other cars are around you.
Well, unfortunately, the camera's not far enough back in it, but you will see they have got screens, and they have 4 video cameras now. As here we go, having a go, trying to get past Buemi, can't quite do it. But they have got these extra videos mounted now, so the driver can actually see at the top of his windscreen. He can see over his front wheels, and he can front wheel arches, and he can see behind him as well.
It's difficult though, because it's almost a distraction. It's not a bit of information that's ready to you. You know, you're moving away from your focal point as Fazler's trying to go all the way around the outside. Well, big risk.
Yeah.
And there's big contact. Has that damaged the steering arm on that Toyota? Because the angle at which they touched, that was fairly substantial. You do not get away with much more than that. No,
just a tap like that. We noticed that the Toyota got onto the dirt. It was right in the dirty side of the track. That's why he couldn't get the grip. And then suddenly the Audi was alongside him. Here we go. We're separated at the moment by the IMSA Porsche, and he's struggling to get by him. Just take it easy. He's obviously really furious now. Sets off after the Toyota there of Sebastian Buemi, but Sebastian must be quietly smiling to himself. You know, well, I know I can resist any attacks by the Audis, and bring it on.
Well, yeah, just not enough space on the exit of that corner. Ordinarily in single seaters, you tend to see the car on the outside pushed wide. Fazler wasn't going to give way, and he wanted to keep that move. That's why he stayed within the white lines on the exit of the corner. It's all about track limits. Look, he's tried to go all the way around the outside, and then there's contact on the exit. Fazler determined to keep his place, and that's why he doesn't want to go off. Look,
that was brutal.
Exactly, but you can see him trying to stay inside this white line.
Yeah. Here we are, they're on board with it, and it's quite a thump. I think we'll feel that. You feel the screen shake. Oh.
It's a big thump. Look, that's a huge amount of contact. And that's why initially, straight away, I thought, wow. Is there any damage to the steering? I'd be surprised if Buemi's not driving along on the straight with a little bit of steering to the left or right there, because that was substantial.
Well, the race direction doesn't seem very keen on what happened there, and they are both under investigation. We're going to go for another break, Tom, and we'll be back with more racing here from Austin, Texas, in the 5th round of the World Endurance Championship. It's a long, long way to go yet. We're only 30 minutes into a 6-hour race.
Hello and welcome back to Texas, Austin, and we have 5.5 hours left of this WEC round, and we've seen a great battle up front. We've seen a great battle in GTE as well. John Martin also leading the LMP2 class, all to play for. This is your race leader, Loic Duval, 11 seconds up the road now, and Buemi is in second place in the Toyota. Got ahead of the second Audi, Marcel Fazler, straight away after the safety car, and hasn't really looked too troubled from there on in. Fazler's looked very racy behind the Toyota, but can't get past, and they've just had contact before we went to the commercial break. Doesn't look as though it's hurt either of them, but certainly if they carry on like that, they might not see the checkered flag.
Fantastic racing, as always, with GT Pro. I mean, the 7 seconds covering the top 6 at the moment in that category. I'm afraid your friend Richie Stanaway we've just been talking about, his car's now at the right at the back of the field after Paul Dallalana had some contact and spun out in turn 1, but they will make their way back up gradually, and these things come back. In fact, yeah, they've actually made a place up already over Julian Canal in the Labra competition at Corvette. So. And
that'll be red rag to a bull for Richie. Richie broke his back in World Series by Renault in 2012. Has come back with a roof over his head in the Super Cup class in Porsche, in a Porsche this year. But he definitely still has that mentality where he has 2 speeds, flat out or stop, and still learning the GT way of life. So I can assure you, when he does get in that Aston Martin, he'll be very, very quick, which is ultimately what we want to see.
Yeah, but what he has to remember, of course, he's got to hand that car over in good condition in one piece when he hands it over to his other co-drivers, Paul Dallalana and who's the other one on board that car? It's
Pedro
Lamy, yeah. So I'm surprised that he out-qualified today. On board with Jimmy Bruni then, probably one of the best GT racers in the world, and Jimmy, multiple champion and many times a winner at Sebring and at Le Mans, of course, and that Ferrari still running there in 5th place in GT Pro at the moment. So it's Aston Martin, Ferrari, the other Ferrari, of course, car, Tony Villander, Jörg Bergmeister, Richard Leitz, the 2 factory drivers on board the Team Manti Porsches, and then Jimmy Bruni, and right behind him Darren Turner, still pushing. There he is, right in the picture there, and Darren just I think waiting to see what's going to happen ahead of them. Porsche, remember, returning next year to Le Mans with an LMP1 car, or hopefully 2, and the big news is that these factory Porsches you're looking at now, the new spec ones, they will be racing as a factory team with Core Motorsport in the ALMS, or the new series, the sports car racing in America next year.
That's the first time they've had a factory team. They've had the non-official factory teams, but it's the first time they've actually put their name to something.
Yeah, this is full-on official, and Core Motorsport are running that. I think Olaf Mantis people will be embedded in it, but Core Autosport, I should call it, be absolutely correct, and that campaign will be quite distinct from the, as you say, from the previous assaults by Porsche, which were with flying lizards, etc. But when it becomes United Sports Cars, they will be there officially.
Brilliant, very exciting to see, and obviously Porsche will be back at the front of the field next year as well in 2014 with their LMP1 program, and they've got some great drivers on board with that already. The testing program is underway, and that just adds more spice to the LMP1 class.
Yeah, I was at Goodwood last weekend for the festival, and Roman Dumas was there driving one of Jim Clark's many Lotuses, and we had a quick chat about how it's all going. And he said, I can't tell you too much, but all I can say is Toyota and Audi had better watch out, because it is going to be good.
Absolutely. I mean, Porsche, stalwarts in motorsport, and they're only ever going to come back and do it properly. And that is it, really, isn't it? If you're going to do it properly, and Porsche will do just that. And, well, you have to be a little bit apprehensive if you are Audi and Toyota, because they're going to throw the kitchen sink at it, and they're going to be very fast. But Audi have been there before, and they've seen off many a challenger, so they'll raise their game, and it's going to be a great spectacle.
Yeah. Incidentally, also at Goodwood, I should say Revival, not the festival, with Goodwood Revival, we had the first ever Ford GT40 race, 28 on the grid. Adrian Newey of Red Bull, he and Kenny Brack won that race, absolutely spectacular. I'm not going to tell you any more about what happened in the Singapore Grand Prix today. We don't do spoilers. Some of you may not have seen it yet, you've perhaps recorded it, but enough said. Adrian Newey, a winner there at Goodwood.
A winner in every way. We're looking at the GTE battle. That's the 2 Porsches, the Porsche AMG Team Manthey cars. Jörg Bergmeister is the car and it's Leeds behind, and that is Gianamina Bruni. Tony Villander, who's in second place in class, just going out of view. He's the red car that you can see. You could just about see the LM GTE Pro class leader, Makoviecki, and he's really going quickly in his Aston Martin Advantage.
Yeah, well, it's Villander, of course, who made the jump. He started off fourth, and in that first lap, before we had the safety car, he moved his way up to second place and stayed there ever since. Tony's already been a good starter, always been a good starter, and no different today. And there he is, just leading the two Porsches, and then Jimmy Bruni on board with Jimmy. And it just flows the circuit, doesn't it? Absolutely beautiful. I mean, the drivers must love it.
Oh, it's magical. Certainly up the hill to turn one. You just cannot quite believe how uphill that is. And then to brake, you really do, especially in the cars that carry large amounts of aero, so the LMP1 cars, you just feel as though you're being sucked out of your seat. Then you've got to be very careful, because from the apex to the exit, it's very difficult to build throttle. And then you're into that absolutely marvelous set of curves right the way through from turn 3 to turn 8 and 9. It's a meandering snake of just balancing and chasing the throttle. Wow, that is pretty robust defensive driving. That's the Oak Racing car that we're on board with, car 35, which is Bertrand Baguette at the wheel there, and
he and Alex having a go together. I don't think team owner Jack Nicolay would be too impressed with that, looking at them trying to edge each other off the circuit.
Well, that was Alex Brundle being quite defensive there, wasn't it?
Yeah. That's what we love, aggression right the way through the field. And I mean, LMP2 has just been so good this year. Incidentally, the whole of the LMP2 field, bar one car, race on Dunlop Tires, and the one that's on Michelin is Picon. But apart from that, every other single car in the field is on Michelin. It's that much of a monopoly for the French tyre manufacturer.
And I think I'm right in saying the Orica in ALMS that was on pole was on Michelin tyre. Yep. So Michelin obviously have a good tyre here. Picon car just in the wars in turn 1. This is a replay of Brundle going very defensive. Now that is... It's about as close as it gets, because ultimately the ruling is one move, which he was clear on, so that's fine. But if you have a car alongside you, you have to give him track width or car's width in order for him to stay on the track. So borderline there, but I'm actually okay with that. I'm going to stick my hat on it.
The Baguette was sandwiched against the barrier, yes. Anyway.
Yeah, no. Well, Buemi's now disappeared. There he is.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gone up the road, isn't he? He's just starting to put some space between the two of them.
Well, no, he was trying to meander his way through the two GT AM cars, I think. And somehow, or it might have been Dallalana. Is that Dallalana ahead of the AM Corvette? Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. And Buemi using the whole track. I mean, he was using the runoff and you name it, he was all over it. So short race control, have a look at that as well.
He hasn't opened a bit of a gap there, hasn't he, over more than a second, that gap now, and the Audi's still trying to hunt him down. But Toyota really hooked up here this afternoon, just really working for them, and getting a lot of grip with those rear tyres, a lot of traction out of the corners.
Yeah, really impressive from Toyota. And what we're seeing through all three classes actually is track position's important as well. And it's difficult to pass it, so you have to rely on the car in front making a small mistake, so to speak, or once we get into serious tyre degradation, then we'll start to see drop-off, and you'll see marbles and so forth starting to build offline, and when you're coming through traffic or moving to let the faster cars through, then it's going to be harder and harder and harder not to make a mistake.
Here's the view back from Jimmy Bruni's car, and the car who is right behind him at the moment is the Aston Martin of, that is Darren Turner, Flying Brit. Darren, of course, together with Stuart Hall, did a ride the whole length of Britain. They did Land's End to John O'Groats just before they went off to race in Sao Paulo, raising money for children's charities.
I know Stuart very well, and he is incredibly fit. Wasn't he? He was under 3 hours for the or around 3 hours for the London Marathon, wasn't he?
That's right, yeah. He goes training every morning when he's at home up at ProDrive in their gym there. He's just so keen, so full on. So
I've adopted the commentator's role 100% now, so I'm not quite as fit as Stuart is, and I don't think I ever was. He's got a great mind for it as well. Really likes going that extra mile, and that plays a big role in what we're seeing here today, because, you know, we've talked about the cars and how they'll cope around this track. This is about as physical as it'll get for these drivers because of the heat. It is just absolutely monstrous. In the car, you're looking at temperatures well over 50 degrees.
Yep.
And certainly you might not see, I've talked about the Toyota double stinting tyres. I don't think the drivers will be staying in there too long. No.
Well, we should have double think. Don't forget, they have to, if they haven't got air conditioning, they have to have cooling, and 34 degrees is the maximum you're allowed to have inside the cockpit. That's the new rule since the start of last year. On again, these two, they've already got some history together. And did you see how he just got so hooked up then with the #1 Audi, and that was on board with Fassler, and as Toyota got held up by those back markers trying to carve through the GTMs, he just thought, right, I'm going for it, and bang, thank you.
The Toyota is using its capacitor again because very quick out of the corners. Okay, he's used all the power now, but coming out of that turn 11, he was on the throttle. Yeah. Fassler adopted a very strange line just to keep him behind.
Yeah, but their earlier incident, still under investigation. I think perhaps race directives or the stewards take a look at that. I think, well, okay, he's paid him back now, so let's leave it at that. But
how much does it cost Fassler? It cost Fassler 15 seconds.
Yep, that's how far down the road he is now. Yep. Here we go. Here it is again. It was definitely a little bang there, wasn't it? Just a love tap. wasn't too hard. Just let him know I'm there.
Yeah, I mean, this actually
didn't have to do it, did he?
No, but that is really borderline, because what people don't realise is any touch there and it's an aeroplane crash. And, you know, we talk about Brundle and his teammate. That was really close there, Buemi and Fassler. Oh. Luckily, they got away with it.
Look at the traffic here. That's the 41 car about to be gobbled up by our race leader. That is Tom Kimber-Smith in the Grease Motorsport car. Tom also racing in the LMS race last night, so he and Ollie Gavin, the only ones getting experience in the circuit.
Back underway here, car number 2. That is your race leader, Loic Duval, trying to get past the Michelin shod Picon LMP2 class car. Pierre Capper on board that into the final sector of this Austin, Texas circuit. And you'll see now the Audi will be very, very quick. Lots of downforce through this long turn 16 and 17. And then it's hard on the brakes for turn 19. Andrea Lotterer warming up in the Audi garage.
Yep.
It's ominous.
Still splitting his time between this and Japan, racing in Japan in Formula Nippon, and also, of course, Super GT when they get the chance. Audi program takes precedence this year, but he and Loic Duval still very much Japanese orientated in their racing. Andre Lotterer, Marcel Fassler, Benoit Trullet, dream team, of course, and having won Le Mans twice for Audi, got thwarted this year.
I have to say, what two magnificent drivers. I mean, they're all magnificent drivers in the Audi stable, but Loic Duval and Andrea Lotterer, two drivers that just seem to have unbelievable pace when it matters. They can just find a second over everybody else. It's just
especially at night at Le Mans. Duval has always been a real star at that. Marcel Fassler, we sort of wrote off. You know, he was in DTM for years, and oh, okay, his time has passed, and suddenly Audi thought, no, we can see there's something there, and he has really held that car together, that #1 car. He's been the mentor for those two younger guys.
Oops, that was what's he hit there? The sausage curve, but he's gone up in the air.
Yep. I hope we see that come outside. That was. Here we go.
What has he hit?
Oh my goodness. Well, that's let the Toyota by again. And that was just a won't say rookie error, it was just an error, wasn't it?
It's Marcel Fazler chasing the game, and that's what happens. You know, it's just not quite worked out for Fazler since the green flag, has it?
Yeah, I shouldn't have mentioned, should I? See, they're already tightening up their helmet straps, expecting him in, aren't they?
Well, I'm not surprised because, well, these Audis we've seen before are incredibly robust. I mean, you can hit quite a lot of things and get away with it, but certainly the driver's fillings will be knocked out because he sits on the floor of that car, and that's like, you know, imagine sat at home being 2 meters in the air and being dropped onto the floor. That's going to really take the wind out of your sails, and then the car itself, all the suspension parts have to survive that. But he's chasing the game. He's trying to catch Loic Duval. Now he's been hit.
Oh yeah, he's been hit, been rammed by the Porsche there as he came back on. I hadn't noticed that because he's lost his rear quarter panel.
Well, that's at the end of the straight. So he's gone down the straight, been slow out of turn 12, and he's now had problems with the second Porsche that's, fired into his rear quarter panel. That's going to really affect the downforce of that Audi. He's going to lose grip.
Well, he's got some cable there. He lost his rear lights on that side, and the lights are actually normally on the end, wing end plate. But let's see if we can see, because if he's lost the lights, he will be called in.
Well, he's certainly got oversteer through there. He has lost the lights. That's the whole light cluster hanging down.
There's a cable flapping, isn't there, behind the car?
Spotted. Hawkeye sat next to me.
When you build the models with these all day long,
but he's going to have a real problem now, because that's going to take away anything up to 15% downforce from the rear of that car.
And he's dropping back already 21 seconds now behind the race leader Duval, and now 6 seconds behind Buemi. Pit stops are coming up soon. I guess they'll leave him out there as long as they can. 50 minutes normally, but because we have the safety car period, I would imagine probably on or about the hour for the Audis, and perhaps 5 minutes later for the Toyotas. They might just get 3 laps in.
Can't hear. That's Marcel talking about vibration there, so he's got damage.
That's Lee Nagate. He's talking to the car manager, the girl who won Le Mans twice, of course, in this car. So,
It's all circumstantial, isn't it? It's amazing. Loic Duval's got away and got his head down, and everything's going well. And you just see Marcel Fazler had that big battle with Buemi, and then he's chasing the game, and then he has a contre two with the Porsche. Clatters over the curve. I would love to know why he was so slow coming out of turn 12, because I mean the Porsche just had nowhere to go. Really didn't expect that, an Audi so slow on the exit of the corner there.
Fortunately for Porsche, this is the new generation Porsche, which doesn't have its oil and water radiators in the front corners, so hopefully not too much damage for that Porsche. If it had been an older model, they could be in big trouble. Here we are, they're calling this car in earlier than they would have normally done. I think Andre Lotterer ready to go on board, and Marcel Fazler must be thinking, oh dear, what have I done?
And for Andre Lotterer, it's going to be a case of try it and see, because he's not going to know really the characteristics of that car, because how true are they? We know it's got a vibration, we know there's damage on it. It's going to take Lotterer a couple of laps to really trust what's underneath him, to see how it's behaving. And it's a difficult time for this #1 Audi.
I think I've got most of those sections ready to put on, though. They might do the whole rear bodywork. I haven't seen it yet, they haven't brought it out, but they're going to have to do something, because if the lights are missing, they will have to replace those. Somebody in qualifying, can't remember who it was at the moment, they actually lost their rear lights, and they lost their qualifying time as a result of that.
No, well, rules are rules, but it's more the fact that he's had to hop over that curve here, and I think the vibration would have come from that. And you just saw Andrea Lotterer with Wolfgang Ulrich simulating vibration, so they've been watching the onboards, and it's definitely not all right.
That's a pass. That's Matt Griffin just taking position from Jean-Carl Vernet there. This is for 3rd place in GTM. Jean-Carl Vernet in the Porsche, much faster in the straight line, the Porsches, but the Ferraris have the edge in the corners. And well, Tom, we're going to be leaving in about 4 minutes, but we'll be back for a couple of hours in an hour and a half's time. But Well, obviously, you can keep up to date at dailysportscar.com, or you can look at the official website, which is the FIAWC.com, and just follow what's going on. You'll see there's live timing and video on those, but what you won't get is the informed and wonderful commentary which we provide you with.
Exactly, what a goldmine of information. But we will be back for a large chunk of the remainder of this race, a good 3.5 hours, and so plenty still to see here on Eurosport, so make sure you're there to watch that.
First shot we've really seen in this race of Nick Heidfeld there in the Rebellion, which is leading, of course, the LMP1 petrol division. It's the only runner. Unfortunately, Stracker Racing, having won the Mans this year in the privateer division, backed out. They've got a new car coming next year, and there's so much damage at the Le Mans 24 hours. After Johnny Kane crashed the car, there was more problems in the race, that they, rather than buy a new chassis, they've just backed out of the championship to wait for what they're going to get next year. We don't know if it's going to be LMP1 or LMP2. We're still waiting to hear.
They did move to the fact it might be LMP1, didn't they? That was the general gist of it. But yeah, crying shame, because Stracker, a great outfit. Now this is your race leader in the pits, ahead of Marcel Fazler. We thought that was for Fazler, didn't we?
Yeah, but when he comes, and Roger was waiting ready in the pits.
And he's getting out.
Yep, so not got a double stint in this one. Right, Duval, who's he handing over to? We haven't seen Christensen or they're both coming in more or less the same time. Two separate crews for this. And here we are, there it is. That's the number 1 car coming in, following, is that the...
Brundle.
Brundle, yep, in the oak car. So in comes Fassler.
They might put that in the garage. They've got the skids ready.
Yeah, what are we going to do? Let's have a look, see if they are changing drivers on the other car.
Yes, McNish.
Yep. Lee Scott, man who's leading the championship, 23 points, great season so far, wins at Silverstone and Le Mans. So, of course, wins for the other car at Spa and Sao Paulo, plus they won the Sebring 12 hours with your good friend Ollie Jarvis. Great victory for Ollie.
Yeah, he's really come of age, hasn't he, in the Audi ranks over the last year, because he had a victory in an R8 at the Daytona 24 hours.
Trolley dolly then goes into the garage backwards. Oh dear, that's a shame.
Well, rather than hemorrhage time, they're going to have a good look at it. They've obviously got an idea of what it is.
Yep. So just going through the cycle of pit stops then, and there is the. That's what triggered the whole incident. Got pushed off, but we're just going to let you know what's happening later on. 8:30 tonight. There we are. World Endurance Championship. We'll be back for the full 2 hours, right to the end. So we'll take an hour and a half's break before then, Tom. Give us a chance to catch up. And but as we say, keep yourself informed with all the news. dailysportscar.com or with FIAWC.com. Here's that replay, Tom. That's a big bang, isn't it? That's
about as big as it gets, and there is obviously some kind of suspension steering damage to that number 1 Audi. It's been in the wars, hasn't it? Yeah. 3 times contact for Fazler.
Right, so we're going to leave you now, and Audi is leading. It's not the number 1 car, it's the number 2 car, and it's G-Drive leading in LMP2. We'll be back at 8:30. Mark Cole and Tom Gaymore.
Keep our attention as the leader picks his way through, and this is Alan McNish now having dropped down to 2nd position. Toyota leads the World Endurance Championship for the first time since the Le Mans 24 hours, and we're coming to a pit stop, Jeremy, for that number 8 car fairly shortly.
Yeah, another lap or two, I think probably at least. Here's the number 1 car already coming out of the garage. It was a very quick change, but still very, very costly.
Shit, Adam?
It may have been it was looking at it was not amused. The car may have only been in, may have only lost a lap, at the worst a lap and a half, but it was still too much for Audi's pleasure.
Nick Heidfeld puts his fastest lap of the race, and Toyota have engines powering the first 2 cars at the moment, with Buemi leading by 40 seconds from Nick Heidfeld, and Rebellion in 2nd place. A 51.4 from Heidfeld last time around was the fastest lap on the track.
Yeah, it was actually, wasn't it? That's well, the best lap of the race so far by Nick Heidfeld, 51.4. That's a pretty good lap in that car, I must say. That's a very good lap in that car. In yesterday in the American Le Mans Series race, the number 6 Pickett Racing Muscle Milk car. Here is a Toyota onto pit lane, by the way.
Right.
Lap 27.
Black and white flag for the 8 car coming into the pits now. That basically is we're watching you, the equivalent of a furled black flag here in the States, pointed at a driver. You've been given a warning. Next time it will be a penalty. It's basically a driving standards flag, says the commentator, who's just had to resit his race license test relatively recently. Thank goodness I didn't get any of the flags wrong. I would have been ripped apart for that, wouldn't I, if I got that wrong by Steve Deeks and the guys at the Silverstone Race School. As in comes Nick Heidfeld. He will not quite be scored as the leader. What a shame. They couldn't have gone a lap more. They did that, of course, at Brazil and led the race. Just a little bit of lock-up from the 12 car as it comes in.
No change of tyres, I don't think, for the Toyota, was there? Did they change tyres on the Audi?
There's no. Yes, they did, because they changed drivers as well. Out comes the seat insert from Heidfeld. Tyres are there for the Rebellion. If you're going to change the driver, surely you want to give him a new set of boots, particularly as you've qualified on these, and the qualifying sessions now means that you have 6 or 8 laps on them. Alan McNish then.
Sorry, John, just to confirm, both Audis did change tyres and the Toyota didn't.
Correct. The Toyota did not, but we had presumably no driver change in the Toyota either. Buemi has stayed in it. Right, well that would make perfect sense. It's tyres and driver are set. Now, earlier on I did see a message from Eduardo Freitas that said the start positions were being investigated, which I didn't mention at the time because the guys were quite busy in the early part of the race. There has been an investigation. There will be no further action. Let's head down into the pit lane. Wolfgang Ulrich is standing by with Louise Beckett.
First hour down, and you couldn't have 2 different outcomes for your team.
Yeah, the car number 2 was running fine from the very beginning. Loic did a really good stint. Marcel struggled a little bit at the very first lap after the restart and was overtaken by the Toyota, and then really had troubles to come back. And now, I think 4 laps before the planned pit stop, in overtaking some GT cars, he was squeezed on his curb, and the car was jumping in the air. And then, when landing, he got touched by a GT, and the legality box was broken off the car. This is something you have to repair immediately, and therefore we did it with this pit stop. But it looks as if the rest of the car would be fine.
With the amount of time that the number 1 car has lost, have you got to now look at your strategy and changing it?
No, I mean, they have now a clear strategy catching up.
Thank you.
I do like Wolfgang Ulrich. The car number 2, team manager, that's Kyle, who's been called to race control immediately. Oh dear. That might. I wonder if that's pit lane speeding.
The Toyota is still leading because the Toyota did not change tyres. The time saved there enough to put Sebastian Buemi back out into the lead of this race. I'm certainly impressed that Buemi is staying out there because on Thursday, when it was much more humid and much more oppressive conditions here, but he was struggling to do more than 20-25 laps. So to stay out here for another full stint, that's Ironman work from Sebastian Buemi.
Yeah, I'm very impressed that he's been able to do that. At Specutainment, at Radio Le Mans on Twitter, if you want to get in touch with us here at the track or indeed further afield. Kevin, at Dirty Uncle Kevin, great handle that, but I'm a bit scared. He says, compare the hit between the Audi number 1 and the hit that Scott Pruitt had in the DP car earlier on in the year, which basically ripped the DP car's front end off completely. That's very interesting there, because you would have thought, wouldn't you? I'm sure a lot of people would have said, well, the DP car, it's a bit more robust, and I use that word advisedly.